see your screen, Peter. Welcome and take it away.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Kim. Thank you for the invitation to present today. And we certainly are really excited about our partnership with Interdyne, and we have a great collaboration and lots of mutual customers and do some great work together. So thanks again for inviting me. And without further ado, today's presentation is called Avoid Chargebacks Before They Occur. The operative word here is before. And what that means is we're going to be discussing today how you manage and how EDI works therein, and how you can avoid chargebacks from your trading community, and how you can avoid the scenario that I know many of our customers call just the cost of doing business with some of the big chains like Walmart and Target and big retailers that dictate EDI terms to their vendors. And if those terms are not met, then they levy chargebacks in the form of financial penalties to their suppliers. And today we'd like to discuss our tool that's called Dimetrics and how that tool can avoid chargebacks before they occur. So before we start, I'm just going to mention a couple things. You know, we love active participation. It's very important throughout the session. Kim has graciously agreed to man the controls here, and any questions or any comments she will be handling and passing them on to me midway through and perhaps at the end of the presentation. So we will be able to engage in a robust Q&A afterwards. But in the meantime, I will continue and start the presentation. So please enjoy. So the agenda today, we are going to discuss managing customer rules, some key challenges that people are facing. We are going to be addressing those key challenges. We're going to discuss how to avoid these challenges and have an overview. We will discuss also business rules and give examples of scenarios in which business rules were not followed and the chargebacks and problems that were incurred, and how by using certain tools our clients were able to avoid those nasty scenarios. So firstly, let's have a quick look at what the business impact of chargebacks on organizations is. So firstly, you'll see there's an increased cost of operation. You can see a decrease in customer satisfaction, which is never good. We can see disruptions in internal business processes, which can also really slow things down and make doing business much more challenging than it needs to be. So let's discuss for a minute, you know, what is a business rule? And when you're in the EDI world, and when we're discussing business-to-business integration, or we'll refer to it as B2BI, what are some of the rules that, you know, syntax and the EDI standards force upon customers, trading partners, and businesses versus what a business rule is? So in EDI, there are syntax standards that need to be adhered to. We have X12 guidelines, and in Europe we have EDIFACT guidelines, and there are different standards via or syntax-wise which companies need to make sure they are adhering to. There are required fields, required number of characters, numeric, alphanumeric, all sorts of syntax rules. Today we're really going to focus on business rules. So rules specific to trading partners. These could be time-specific requirements, document sequence requirements, and we'll go into real detail a little later on in the presentation. But an interesting item in the news, on May 4th of this year, Target announced some new rules on its vendor community, tightening down, really restricting a lot of the rules and making them much more rigid. Reuters learned that the discount retailer was cracking down on its suppliers. So some of the objectives of these business rules that we're going to be looking into. So the big box retailers, as we'll use for one of our examples, they really want to speed up supply chain and competitive scenarios and to compete with their rivals. So it's understandable why they would levy these rules onto their trading community. And they also want to keep products stocked. They want to be able to carry lower inventory levels but have much higher fill rates, and to keep their operation running very smoothly so they can achieve maximum profits. So now the new rules that are going to be levied upon their suppliers, so single day arrival date for shipments, warehouses. So what that means is, on your advanced shipment notice, for example, which is the 856 EDI document, you will have 1 day to advise them, and there'll be 1 day where you'll be able to have your products shipped to the distribution center or to the store, whatever the case may be. So there'll be no grace period either for late shipments. So what was a 2 to 12 day grace period based on your business flow and your supply chain management, where you had a few days to sort of figure things out, now you have no grace period. And what that means is you will incur, as one of their suppliers, a fine for late shipment of 5% of the total order cost. So a penalty that was once 1 to 3%, which already is a serious penalty to pay for being late on a shipment, is now 5%. So in today's environment where margins are so tight and everyone is competing for every single order, every point on every purchase order is really important to companies. And now, if you lose 5% off the top because you are late with a shipment, that could really be the difference between making money and not making money. So that's why we've come up with some of our tools, and the one we're going to focus on today is DiCentral's Dimetrics. So in order to illustrate the challenges of managing customer rules like we just saw, I'd like to start with a true story about a supplier who at the time was working with another EDI provider. So they had enjoyed steady growth, but when sales plateaued a bit, management made the decision to take a concerted effort to increase revenue. So they put together a plan to reach out to distributors, partners, potential clients, and successfully landed several major accounts. And as you might imagine, management was very, very satisfied, particularly how it affected the bottom line. And so for the first month, they worked on setting up connections with all their new retail clients. So you can see in the illustration that these connections were made electronically using EDI, and the communication lines were drawn going to and from the retail community back to the manufacturer, and separate lines of communication were set up between retailer A, B, and C and our customer. And what that led to was client requirements and rules being levied upon our customer. So by the second month, they were already feeling the burden of the retail's rule books or requirements, as you can see by the huge bags of paper that are on top of our poor client. And this burden grew exponentially with each new set of retailer requirements. And since it had wrapped up business so quickly, the supplier just couldn't keep up with implementing and complying with all these new business rules. So it was really only a matter of time later that month before they were penalized for failing to send an ASN at its appropriate time. So with retailer A in month 2, you could see in the description here that they did not send an ASN, which is the Advanced Shipment Notice, or the 856. And for that, they received a chargeback in the amount of $10,000. By month 4, the supplier was really struggling to keep up with compliance and suffered another series of rule violations. This time, they sent an ASN after the required time frame. So you can see here with retailer B, late ASN, big problem. And then this levied another chargeback resulting in $7,500. Of course, this only accounts for the monetary penalties, right? In the meantime, the relationships with each of these new clients had become more and more strained. Now, by the 6th month of getting all these new customers, things had really spiraled out of control. They continued to rack up chargebacks, including failure to acknowledge the retailer's PO. So retailer C now had some issues as well. And by this time, retailer C had had enough, and they decided to terminate the relationship. Of course, the cost of this is incalculable. So all in all, over a 6-month period, they had incurred $40,000 in chargebacks. They had lost a key client in the process, nearly eroding all of their margins. So this prompted management to seek outside help to review their processes. And through a series of customer referrals, they reached out to DiCentral. So a typical question that we see is very simple. You know, don't EDI providers manage all of these business rules? So typically, the way the relationship works is that EDI providers will validate the raw EDI data structure only, not the business rules that are associated with document timing, sequencing, content. So this type of validation is unique and requires understanding of not only the rule, but the business process associated with that rule. In addition, tools need to be made available for end users to manage the rule process across multiple document types and customers and suppliers. So you can have more insights really on thought leadership and best practices in the supply chain if you like, and you can visit our blog, which we publish new ideas, new ways of conducting business on our blog, and you can see here's a link for that. I figured I'd throw in that self-promotion, you know, while we're into it here, in case anyone had another screen going and was getting tired of the sound of my voice. So, recapping our story here, the supplier reached out to DiCentral to uncover why they were having so much difficulty keeping up with retailers' rule books. And if any of you are EDI analysts or run the supply chain for your company, you know that, you know, once the sales team has gone out and gotten a new customer and everyone's excited and the celebrations have all been made and the patting on the back happens, then you, as the person behind the scenes, you get thrown on your desk a 50, 60, 200, 300-page rule book from the retailer saying, okay, if you want the pleasure of doing business with us, these are the rules you have to follow. this is the timing of when products can be shipped. You have to acknowledge receipt of our purchase orders. You have to send us advanced shipment notices. You have to send us invoices via EDI. If you do one before the other, we will levy a fine on you. If you put the shipping label in the wrong corner of the package, we will levy a fine on you. And by the end of the day, what was happening was you had some of these huge big box retailers that were actually forecasting revenues based on chargebacks they were levying on their vendors, and this would account for sometimes some of the biggest growth the company was enjoying, which, we don't like to think that companies are making money off the backs of their vendors because they've created such an intricate and complicated structure in which to do business with them. Unfortunately, this is the case for certain companies. We'd like to think and hope that most retailers are focusing on top-line growth, top-line revenue, where, the value of their the products they offer and the environment in which they offer people to purchase those products are really the way that they make money. But that, of course, is a conversation for another day. So, moving right along here, we conducted an assessment of their processes, and we uncovered several key manual processes that had led to violations that had eroded their profit margins, and we saw some of those examples earlier in the presentation. So we reviewed their options. We made a few suggestions on how to shield them, if you will, from the avalanche of customer requirements. And they made the decision to leverage our B2B integrated platform as a managed service offering, so which helped neutralize several of the key EDI-related issues, but to prevent further violation of their retailer-specific business rules. We also deployed Dimetrics. So Dimetrics is a proactive solution that gives them complete, near real-time visibility access across each and every trading partner relationship, so they can proactively prevent rule violations before they occur. So let me show you a few examples of how this works. So in the case of the business rule where you need to send an ASN prior to PO expiration date, so one of the standard business rules retailer A had set forth was just this one, to make sure that its supplier sent ASNs prior to the PO expiration date. So by using Dimetrics, the supplier set an alert for a week prior to the expiration date to notify the warehouse manager that the ASN had not yet been sent. So if for some reason the ASN had still not been sent, 2 days prior to the expiration date, Dimetrics would alert the shipping manager and the company president and provide recommended action steps. Now, the ways we can alert people throughout the organization, it could be via fax, it could be an SMS text message, and it can be via email. So this really ensures that all documents are issued at the proper times. Now, in the case of another customer that we have, they were incurring chargebacks based on miskeying in information on the invoice, and a typo would lead to a $10 chargeback. In 4 months, they received $7,000 in chargeback. After installing our solution and using Dimetrics, and just as simply as having EDI flowing into their ERP seamlessly without having to do any manual manipulations, they eliminated all those chargebacks instantly. So now, let's look at the next set of business rules. So the standard business rule that we had seen earlier with Retail B had set forth was to make sure invoices were issued only after the ASN had been sent. So if for whatever reason the invoice was sent before the ASN, Dimetrics will catch the document and quarantine it before it is issued to the retailer. Now at this point, management is immediately alerted of the issue and given recommended action steps. So from there they can decide to discard, hold, or release the invoice. But at least now they know that the violation was about to take place. They were about to incur what could have been a 5% chargeback on the value of the purchase order. But now, none of this has taken place, and they're able to act accordingly. Now in the case of Retailer C, they had set forth the business rule to ensure that the SKU on the ASN matched with the SKU that was on the purchase order. So if for whatever reason the SKU numbers were mismatched or there were any mismatched terms, and you could decide which terms need to be matched, Dimetrics will catch the error and again, like the scenario before, will quarantine the ASN before it is issued to the retailer. So at this time, management is immediately alerted of the invalid SKU number and can decide whether to hold, discard, or release the ASN. So these are just a few of the many proactive capabilities of Dimetrics. Now the results in all of this, and if we go back to the story, by using Dimetrics, the supplier reduced over 90% of all business rule related chargebacks. And this has really given them the freedom to go out and pursue new client relationships and to experience that steady growth that they were looking for without the concern of chain complexity, such as business rule violations and the related chargebacks. So to recap, Dimetrics provides business rule management, so the ability to set customized business rules for every trading partner specification. Quarantine management, in the event that the business rule is violated, the document will be quarantined before it is issued to the trading partner or integrated into your ERP or back office system. It also offers alert management. Your management team will immediately be alerted of the business rule violation and provided with recommended next steps, at which time you can decide what to do with the document. As well as scheduled or on-demand reporting, providing insight into trends associated with key performance indicators on a regular scheduled basis or on an ad hoc basis whenever you need them. So what we found is, simply having an EDI partner to make sure that data is flowing from where you want it to where you want it in a timely manner, it really is just the beginning of the relationship that we have with our customers. Because really what's important is how you are able to visualize that data, how you are able to make sure that everyone in the organization, not just the IT department, is able to manipulate that data in a way where it's actually adding to profitability, where it's adding to supply chain efficiencies, and where it's making sure that your business is running in the way that upper management is intending for it to run. So why don't we just quickly look at some of the verticals and which industries can benefit from this type of reporting tool. So there's the retail industry. And in the retail industry, just like many others, there's increased competition, demand supply chain automation to reduce costs. IT resources are thin, increased cost of developing and maintaining in-house B2B integration. So why not outsource this key part of running your business to experts, to people who only deal with EDI and business-to-business data integration? Infrastructure upgrades force retailers really to recertify supplier B2BI capabilities. We also see that in the consumer packaged goods, where similar needs are being addressed, customer demands are more sophisticated. There's compliance issues. IT resources, again, are always thin. The increased cost of developing and maintaining in-house integration, and seeking a solution that will provide future ERP integration capabilities. So just to speak specifically on with the Microsoft suite of products, dynamic ERPs, whether it's Dynamics Nav, whether it's GP, whether it's AX, our solutions integrate into any of these ERPs. And we also are cloud-based. So any of this data reporting and Dimetrics, which we've looked at, for example, all this is based in our cloud. So the sophistication of these tools will not burden or slow down your ERP. All of the heavy lifting is really done in our cloud, which allows, you know, our partners like Interdyne to really focus on whatever customizations your ERP is or that are required of your ERP to really make your business run smoothly and as intended. And then our solution will not weigh down any of the functionality or capability of your ERP. And then any of these reporting tools are based in our cloud, so anyone in the organization can access them via web portal. And of course, you know, within the ERP, you can manipulate the data as you see fit. We also see that in the healthcare industry, you know, there are heavily regulated requirements. So these regulatory demands on supply chain automation, IT resources, again, are thin. And of course, the increase of developing these types of tools make it difficult for companies to do this on their own, which is why we recommend that they outsource to a managed service company such as our own. So we'll look also at who within these organizations, regardless of the vertical, who within the organization really can benefit from Dimetrics and these powerful reporting tools. So within the organization, we'll see the CFO, who is responsible for capturing and improving all reporting on the financial activity that takes place. So the CFO now, who was really in the dark when it came to chargebacks, or, well, I won't say they were in the dark about chargebacks. They certainly were the person who was feeling the effects of the chargebacks, but they really had no recourse as to how to avoid these chargebacks. And if the CFO were to wander back into the warehouse and say, excuse me, but why are we incurring all these chargebacks? Well, the person responsible for EDI would say, listen, it's not my fault. All the data that's flowing regarding EDI is being done properly and in a timely manner. Now, this person might not be able to explain to the CFO, or they might not even know themselves, that the fact that they were sending the invoice prior to the advanced shipment notice was responsible for these 5% chargebacks, and it was really a mystery. And the CFO was going nuts, pulling their hair out, wondering, why am I incurring all these chargebacks when every time I go back to the warehouse manager, he tells me everything's running smoothly. So having access to Dimetrics and these rules where not only will the IT manager or the logistics manager find out that there's a problem, the CFO can be alerted just as easily via text, fax, or email that an invoice has just been quarantined because it was about to be exported before the ASN. Now, when you have upper management and C-level executives being notified before the problem is occurring, they're really able to leverage, their authority and to find, now that they have this information, they can really take advantage. And now, all of a sudden, you're making 5% more margin on every single order because you've avoided these chargebacks before they occur. So it's really a compelling story for upper management who was previously in the dark to now have access to all of this data, which, earlier when people used to look at EDI, the raw data, it made absolutely no sense. But with our reporting tools, everyone can access this data in a user-friendly interface that will allow them to actually have better performing businesses. Now, the CIO is also very interested in the type of data that they will have access to using our tools. They're responsible for the overall IT budget and for making sure that the resources and the technology they're spending all this money on is actually improving the bottom line. Now, of course, the EDI director would be greatly impacted by all this information. You'll see the logistics person as well. So as we mentioned in the example of the ASN and the invoice, and whether it's picking and packing and whatever the case may be, the logistics people and the operations people, if they have a better understanding of what the business rules are and how they need to avoid breaking them with the Dimetrics tool in place, they have a much better view of how they have to plan their production. So in the case where we saw earlier where an ASN was sent out too late with the deadline of the purchase order dictated by the retailer, now you can, with Dimetrics, you can create a report that will print out every order that needs to be shipped out that month, that week, that day. And then with that report, you're able to plan your production much more efficiently. And then, of course, your VP merchandising, people who they communicate with suppliers to monitor product availability, inventory, quality control, pricing, and product selection. So these are just a few of the people within an organization that could really benefit and leverage this type of a tool. And then when you think about making an investment, it's so much easier to see the return on investment based on chargebacks that will be avoided, based on planning, based on fill rates. You can create reports that will do scorecarding for certain customers, and the tool is just really very powerful, and the applications therein are limitless. So really, the key takeaway here that I'd like to send off with you all is really, how can this type of a reporting tool? Now, of course, keep in mind our EDI offering is really second to none. So we're able to integrate with your ERP. In the case of NAV, which I'm the NAV practice manager or team lead, all that data, all the EDI information flows seamlessly into your ERP. So you're able to import purchase orders or the 850 document. You're able to, with a click or setting up automation, instantly convert those purchase orders into sales orders. And then you're manipulating and working within confines of your CRM, which you love. And then you're able to create the documents such as the advanced shipment notice, the invoice, and whatever other documents you need to successfully run your business. And all that's being done, seamlessly and in an embedded, integrated fashion where there's no more manual manipulation of orders as they come in. The opportunity for errors is greatly diminished to the point where we hope your business is operating with no errors of that type, and you're really able then to focus on your expertise and not being an expert in EDI. A great example of how EDI as a managed service has really, taken over is to look at the example of payroll, where most organizations now, where they have resources and human resources all across the country, sometimes globally placed, where there are different tax implications, there are different deductions at source that need to be made on payroll, there's commission structures, so on and so forth. So what companies decided to do to save time and money and to focus on their core business was to outsource the payroll function. And we offer a similar type of service, but in EDI. And people now, once they see the ability of a tool such as Dimetrics, now that they have the reporting capabilities that are very easy for them to access, all of a sudden having EDI as a managed service makes a lot of sense. So you can have all your resources focusing on running the business. And we really like to go in on a case-by-case basis, because we know all your businesses are unique, and the way you manufacture and the way you distribute, the way you go to market is unique. So what we do is we're offering a free integrated business assessment. So what you can do is you can contact me directly, or you can contact anyone at DiCentral, but you can contact me directly. You see my email address is up on the screen, and that's my direct number as well. And please contact me directly, and we can do an assessment for your particular company, and we can look at the business processes that you're doing, who's dictating what terms as far as EDI is concerned, and what type of solution would make the most sense for your business. And I'd love to speak with you individually about this. And also, if anyone has any questions, or if there's anyone that has anything they'd like to offer, or comments they'd like to make, or any comments they'd like to hear from me, I would welcome them. At this time, I can pass things over to Kim, if she's listening. And again, if anyone has any questions or any comments or anything, I would be happy to address them right now. And again, please feel free to contact me directly at my email address there, or you can go through Kim, and we'd love to discuss the opportunities of partnering up in the future. So thank you very much, Interdyne, for having DiCentral present today. We love the opportunity of continuing our partnership with Interdyne, and with anyone out there who's looking for more information on EDI and supply chain management and how to increase efficiencies, it would be my great pleasure to share what we found with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Excellent. Question in the queue. Again, on the right-hand side, you can see the question area. If you wanted to type in what questions you would have for Peter, we'll get those addressed. The first question that is listed here is, how long does it take to get implemented and to the point of doing trading?
Well, that's a great question. And, what we found is it really, really depends on your infrastructure and what solution is appropriate. So, for example, if you just landed a new customer and you need to start trading EDI documents with them ASAP, what we can do is get you set up on the web with what's called DiWeb, which is a web portal where you log in and you have your mailbox, if you will, and all orders that are coming in can be accessed and viewed instantly from anywhere you have an internet connection. So we could get you set up very, very quickly within a week or so with that scenario, And then what we can do is, depending on the ERP you're using, depending on the level of integration you're looking for, we can go live as quickly as we just went live actually with a BMI customer based in Florida. We went live from the day they entered into an agreement with us for EDI as a managed service. It was 7 weeks and 3 days to have a full embedded integration into Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016, where they were trading with, I believe it was Walmart or Dollar General. I'm not sure which one they were trading with first, but 7 weeks and 4 days from the day they entered an agreement, which is really fast.
Excellent. All right. I don't see any other questions in the queue. Words of advice, again, we've got Peter's email address, and that is to get in touch with him. Let him know that you're a BMI client so that we can make sure that we get the right people engaged with you. Any other words of advice, Peter, before we let folks go?
Well, words of advice, I would say, you know, if you have any uncertainty, if you're concerned at all about EDI, if, you know, on the other hand, which I didn't really discuss, but oftentimes as a manufacturer or a small to medium-sized business or a large business that wants to be able to attract big retailers like Walmart and Target, often if you have the infrastructure of EDI and integrated business-to-business integration, if you have that functionality within your company already, it's a much faster and it's a nice hook to be able to get those big orders from those big companies when you can just tell them, oh yeah, we do EDI, we're fully integrated, and you can start sending EDI documents to us today. It's a great way to incentivize customers to do business with you.
Excellent. Thank you.